Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin is the most underrated game of 2022. Up until now, if I were to decide which games are the game of the month, I would pick Pokemon Arceus for January, Elden Ring for February, and Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin for March. I played it when it was first launched, and after nearly 2 months of its release, I finished it once again. Right after my Final Fantasy review, I thought it would be best to take a look at Jack's journey to fight against Chaos, fighting against Fiend, his own, and also the land's fate. Though I don't blame the gamers for not giving this game a chance. Of course, Chaos meme's bad influence also affected the game's overall appearance. It is mostly Square Enix's marketing and PR's fault, in my opinion, for not presenting it good enough. This game needs more love and respect, and I'm about to give it. First of all, if you are familiar with Koei Tecmo's Neo series, based on actual historical event of Sengoku era of Japan, you can also get used to Stranger of Paradise quite easily. Developed by Team Ninja of Neo series, Stranger of Paradise is a hybrid of Souls-like and hack and slash, depending on the difficulty you are playing. You can either play as tough Souls-like game on hard difficulty, or more hack and slash type of action-packed style by action difficulty. It is totally up to you. Difficulty change has its of course own benefits, meaning harder the game is, more materials you receive. But Stranger of Paradise never forces you to change your difficulty. Even if you play on action or hard difficulty, combat never turns into a no-brainer. It always pushes you to upgrade your gear, level up your characters, and to use your abilities. Though the gameplay system is not the same as Neo. More hack and slash version of its gameplay style, to be precise. Rather than giving attribute points to your character, you level up and upgrade your jobs and trying to gather better gear. I wouldn't be mistaken if I say that Stranger of Paradise is in fact prequel to the original first Final Fantasy title. I don't want to explain further and spoil anything for you guys here, since it has a quite good character development, plot twist that builds up the background for original Final Fantasy. Our main character Chaos Hater Jack and his friends Jed and Ash are trying to find Chaos, beat it to its pulp, and trying to restore the crystal that might bring the harmony to the world. Sounds quite same as the first title, ain't it? Well, without spoiling anything, all I can say is everything has a purpose. Jack's fixation on Chaos, their quest against fighting against the darkness, they all have a purpose, like a piece of a bigger puzzle.
私はカオスとなるもの。お前たちは何者だ。
俺たちはカオスを倒しに来た。
Jack's character development and all of the plot are being explained through the cutscenes and also by the Lufanian reports that are scattered around each story map. These Lufanians, the ancient civilization that can be also found by the original title, have a bigger story and a role by this game. So I believe you will like how the story unfolds. Aside from the story, each map is a love letter to main Final Fantasy titles. The first map, being the Chaos Shrine, is the original Final Fantasy map. By continuing the story, you find yourself within the maps from each Final Fantasy title, from Final Fantasy VIII's Trial Cave that Squall enters to challenge Ifrit, or Final Fantasy VII's Mako Reactor, now home to the infamous Water Crystal. It is not that Jack and his team is traveling across dimensions, but let's say it is a love letter to all of those titles, adapted into the Stranger of Paradise. These maps never bore players or become dull, but always pique interest and mostly are a fun service for long Final Fantasy fans. I think one of my favorite was the Final Fantasy VI's map, Floating Continent, and also having a boss quite similar to the Final Fantasy VI Ultima Weapon. Man, I'm really looking forward to playing Final Fantasy VI once again. What I found quite lacking here is the variety of enemies. Quite similar to the first Final Fantasy title, we fight against skeletons, bombs, goblins, wolves and ogres starting from mid-level. By the endgame dungeons, the enemy choices begin to differ, but unfortunately it is a bit late for that. Although I like the approach of reference to the old games here, but I felt that the levels could have been more cinematic or engaging, so to say, rather than try to move forward into the dungeon and trying to reach the boss kinda level design. To be honest, it felt like Stranger of Paradise had some budget problems here and there at some point. As you start the game, you find Jack carrying a great sword and fighting as a warrior, and then learn to be a mage, pugilist, lancer by each weapon you discover. Stranger of Paradise consists 3 levels of classes, starting from beginner, advanced and expert. Each level consisting different jobs that get mixed or hybrid, so to say, by each level. Playing as mage and upgrading the skill tree will lead you to 3 different mage classes, namely red mage, black mage and white mage, which then will turn into sage with the high level job. which can cast all types of magic. With this system, Stranger of Paradise wants player to level up each class at least to unlock high level jobs. Each skill tree of jobs have new attacks, movesets, passive attributes within, and by playing these jobs they level up. You can also level these jobs with anima shards that you can obtain by playing quests within the game, or equipping gears with different jobs affinity. So if you never played Nioh before, then let me explain it to you. Both Nioh and Stranger of Paradise have a gear system quite similar to the Diablos, which means that by defeating enemies, opening chests or defeating bosses, lots of loot will drop. And I mean lots of. Each drop loot have different stats, job affinities that will boost that job's passive abilities. Let's say you are playing Knight and using Sword and Shield, and then a high level shield that dropped from the boss has an affinity for Red Mage. You won't receive any negative effects, but your Red Mage job would also gain experience points. You won't be able to unlock passive attributes of Knight job though, but also you won't be able to unlock passive attributes of Knight job if your job affinity is low. Although this job affinity gear system is quite important, you might also want to be cautious of the level of the gear that drops. Your priority should be first the gear level and then the job affinity. As you can guess, the whole gear system, job affinity and the job that you can play efficiently is the key, but also your team members. Jack can fight alongside with 2 of his friends, choosing from 4 different characters. You can unlock advanced and expert level jobs for these characters as well, by playing the main story and some high level challenging side quests. Be sure to always have a Sage or a Black Mage that would deal insane amount of damage by hitting these targets' weakness and also by breaking their stance or posture, so to say. Because it is time to talk about Stranger of Paradise's main, real deal gameplay mechanic, unleashing Jack's hate upon everything. Jack has a unique talent that can be summarized as reflecting enemies' special attack. With this Soul Burst ability, Jack can either parry or drain the enemy's special attacks that are shown with purple highlight just before the animation, and use this drain spell to deal damage. This Soul Burst ability lets Jack to gain an upper hand. From ordinary enemies to the bosses, Jack can drain these purple attacks with the Soul ability, but sadly cannot keep it forever or cast it indefinitely. These drain attacks have an amount. This mechanic would provide you chances to counterattack and also defend against the special skills, especially by the hard difficulty and above. Of course, you can also dodge around these attacks, but by parrying, Jack can gain mana points as well. These mana points can be used for special skills that you can set on your quick access bar, such as inflicting life leech with each attack, curing yourself from any status condition, or to unleash Lightbringer to deal more damage and break postures of your enemies easily. As I mentioned before, I played Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin twice since its release, and I'm continuing to tackle the chaos difficulty that's unlocked right after the story is completed. Tougher enemies, ruthless bosses and more loot oriented gameplay with jobs level extended until level 99 provides more gameplay until a Behemoth DLC or more story related content launches. Although Stranger of Paradise lacks variety by enemy and level design at some points, it has solid gameplay, which is simply fun, and I really think it doesn't deserve the approach that is caused by the chaos memes, but needs more people giving it a chance. Stranger of Paradise for me is a B tier, way better than other Final Fantasy titles like Dirge of Cerberus or Crystal Chronicles in terms of gameplay and the concept. I finished the main story and the side contents around 30 hours on action difficulty this time, and the gameplay length extends if you play it on hard difficulty. And of course I'll be explaining why I find it better than Dirge of Cerberus later when I make a review about it. And I hope Square Enix continues to make this Stranger of Paradise concept for Final Fantasy X and other titles also. I would like to play as Jack and Auron and would like to experience Jack's journey as a Stranger of Paradise in Spira.